Now we're going to talk about different kinds of leans. And that means the Italian word appoggio that's used all the time in Italy means leaning, right? You lean a ladder against, it's like leaning a ladder against the wall to lean your breath against your diaphragm. So there are different ways to do it, see? So we're going to discuss these. If I use a falsetto attachment, I get a response right there on my diaphragm. See? So now I have a leaning method, and I've got my voice attached here. Right? So there are all of these different ways that people use. Laud's Melchior used to reinforce it and do it like this. Now some people like to use breath of fire. Those that practice yoga a lot and get very good at it usually sing much better because of all the ability they have in the diaphragm and the rib cage. But if I do a breath of fire, which is that panting in and out abdominally, my abdomen, and I'm panting, and the faster I go, the more energy I generate. So I go. Now, if I start singing, you'll find there's already a preset in the diaphragm. So you could say my lean is already in my diaphragm. It's a very energetic way of singing, especially suitable for certain kinds of music. If I do, something like, let's say, La Donna Mobile, and I do breath of fire, it's not in my nose. See? But it's energized like crazy, and it creates an automatic attachment or lean or appoggio right here. Now, every action is an equal and opposite reaction. That's the third law of motion. So if we do that, then there are actions I can make that will cause a reaction here. If I go, look at, you can see it moving down here on my tummy. Look at this. Look at that. Which means the lean, the appoggio, is established because I did a certain exercise. It also affects the location of the lean. A lot of the leans, especially my age, right, have a push belly, so they get right in here in the epigastrium a lot. A lot of singers sing, Pavarotti sing on the navel. See? So if I do a deliberate, which some singers do, you'll hear them do a little mini grunt. And I can put it here. And that was right on my navel. So what if I do one in the sternal notch, which is here? Then I'm doing what Mario Domenico did all the time. And of course, he sang Otello 467 times. I never had a vocal problem with it. But no one else can say that. Probably said maybe Aureliano Pertile, who sang Otello during the war, and La Scala. But they were the two greats who could sing endlessly and not get tired or affected or anything. If I go exhale and just stop it right there on the sternal notch, what do I get? Look what happens down here. So sometimes we do actions that cause reactions. And these reactions should be, of course, the ones that we want that will let us sing. They'll free the throat. So if I go, how are you today? I'm fine. Everything's loose here. The action ends right here and begins down here somewhere. Now, another one is, let's say I want to do, well, just almost any of these that we use. I want to use, I'll go ahead and place my voice up here in my forehead. high up in my, what they used to call the true mask. This is the artificial mask, or the default mask. I go, to my nose. So nobody can hear it over a big orchestra. You can't be heard when you do that. Might sound good in a room, or it might sound good on a recording, but not in big theaters or big orchestras. So instead I move this one up, you go hung, and put it up here. Hung, 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 hung. There we go again. I'm getting a big reaction in my diaphragm. So now comes, what do I do with it? Once it does that, what do I do with it? Well, mainly you don't let it change. You watch it and try to keep it all the time exactly the way it ended up when you made your action-reaction function, and you got a reaction down here, then you don't let it change. You'll go, and I tried my best not to let the one that has been caused by one of the really good entrance exercises, and I try to do it right there. Now, someone like Leonard Warren would probably have the best baritone voice I ever heard, and the biggest. Use what he called the pre-sneeze. Now, if I go like this, where does it react? La, 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 la. The whole thing gets well, wonder his voice is so big, right? Because the whole body's working under that. La, la, ha, ha, la, ha. These are all breath stops that work. I started calling them breath stops after I read Lily Lehman's book. It's really her term. She used to call it Staupunkt, which is the jamming up point. And Atemstauen, which means to jam the breath. The question is where. She said, imagine this as a dam or a dike, and it's got a leak in it. She said, so what you do is you stop the leak. You go, la, la, see what I mean? They all cause a reaction in my diaphragm. And the Italians call that appoggio. The English call it support or breath support. The Germans call it Atemstütze, which means breath support. So the idea is that you can get your entire air column organized to support your voice and the freedom of your throat by identifying one of these actions that causes a reaction. I can do something like Bob. Now what happens here if I say Bob? Bob! 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 See what I'm doing? But a minute I go Bob! Bob! It jumps out and I can use it as my leaning technique. All of these leans that happen in the front cause the lower back to squeeze like this and to squeeze air against the front. Therefore, you must learn to breathe way down lower in your back so you have an adequate supply to be able to use it up here. And let's do another one, which is the cough. The cough got very popular. The main believer in what he called the miniature cough was Manuel Garcia II, and he made a big career as a voice teacher. And he used what he called the pre-cough. So if I'm going to cough, I go. Now that means I'm building pressure up of my breath. My breath pressure is coming from my back up against here. And then I cough. So it's not a coughing exercise, a coughing method is one way to do it. But the pre-cough is a better way to do it. So I go, instead of making a coughing sound, I'll make a singing sound. La, no, la 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 la. So there are different kinds of things we can do to cause a reaction in the diaphragm that becomes usable. Funnily enough, something like using a Y, in English it would be a Y, and I go, yum, 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 and if I put an N from it, I go, yum, 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 it's sort of, the N sort of places it up here, and then the yum adds this to it, so the resonance goes up here, and it's not in my nose. I know it sounds a little complicated, but just say the word, and forget everything else. So if I go, yum, yum, look at this, yum, 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 yum. What do you think I'm doing there? Nothing. I just thought yum, and the Y makes this jump. So now let's try a few others. Let's try something like, Franco Corelli always talked about singing behind the glottal stroke. So if I go, no reaction. If I'm up here in the front of my throat going, stroking the glottis, I get no reaction. But Corelli said, no, he read it apparently in the Caruso book, and he believed it. And Caruso said in his book that if you hear a glottal stroke, somebody's singing too far forward in the throat. So you're supposed to take that and start backing it up and move it behind the glottal stroke. Like that. Now, what happened down here when I did that? Especially if I can attack behind the glottal stroke. What was that? Feel that? All I did was go behind the glottis stroke, and I got this tremendous reaction in my tummy. Now, let's talk about Joan Sutherland for a minute. She did her technique when she did coloratura, which since she was one of the greatest singers in history, was based on a staccato position in the back of her neck. So she would breathe, what she said, she breathed up her rectum, way down low in the back, and then she'd go to the back of her neck and find that staccato point. So if I go, or now I'm going to sing on that little staccato point. In other words, I'm getting a reaction that's sort of going around my rib cage. Some of them are a little subtle and hard to identify in a specific spot. Some of them are generalized, and that's the beauty of them. They can sort of work all over your body, right? Let's say I do. What's a good example? This one, right? What happens if I go up here at the top of my head? What happens down here? I'm sitting on the top of my head. I'm trying to get it to sit right on that spot, right in the center of my skull. When I do that, I get a support, more than a support location, but I get a whole support system that I can sing everything with. If it's possible to do that here, I probably can do it somewhere else, like here. Get the idea? You make actions that cause reactions in the breathing and no reactions in the throat. Certainly not muscular reactions. Sometimes the throat opens, you breathe in a certain way, and your larynx goes down and your throat opens. Well, the Garcia school of doing this free trachea all the way down and pronouncing at the bottom of it. If I do that, Now, when I did that, they'd say, oh, you're a young Helden tenor, and you cannot sing all these lyric music. You sound ridiculous. If I sang, I was doing La Demobile one club, right? If I do that, now I'm 85 years old, that makes a big difference too. If you're young, when I was young, I didn't sound like this. But the point is now, in my old age, if I do this and try to sing La Demobile, I get it sounds like the Duke's grandfather. Well, you know what Hamlet said, to thyself be true, and neither lender nor borrower be. So if I'm going to be true to myself, maybe that's the old geezer tone, see? On the other hand, we talked about one tape I made, we talked about the Lamperti school, which is all in the stai, and you use that bright vowel that comes from the second person singular in Italian. Come stai, dove vai, cosa fai, see? Che sai. So it's that ah. Now if I do that and I sing on that little dot back there, where I say stai, by the way, Lamperti said the open throat in the Italian school is the same shape as the ah vowel in the Italian word S-T-A-I, come stai. The polite form is sta. The familiar form is stai. Well, that Lamperti method sort of took over the operatic world, and all of a sudden everybody was singing that way, except a few basses and a few Wagner singers who need a much bigger tone than that. But that was a very sparkling, metallic type sound, and people really liked it. I would venture to guess that most people on this tape, hear this tape, would prefer it to that dark, grandpa sound. But people sang like mad, and they sang this way. I've known singers. The first teacher I ever had that was a professional singer was a Garcia, a student of the Garcia school. And he sang this way, and he was magnificent, bass baritone. Mac Harrell was his name. He's on the Toscanini recording of the Ninth Symphony. Beautiful, beautiful, big, round, fantastic voice. He had polio, so he couldn't act much in normal roles. But as a concert bass baritone, I never heard anybody even come close to it. So the idea is that we are doing different things. We're either doing things up here or here somewhere that causes reaction in the diaphragm, or we're doing the action in the diaphragm of the breathing, and it causes a reaction up here. See? So you think about, I don't plan to do them all. I guess I know, I don't know, many hundreds, I don't know how many different attack points there are. The whole bel canto school was stopped right here, for instance. You'd go right there. La, la. Where's my reaction? La, la, la. See? So these different positions where I put the breath and then stop the breath and control it there, all these positions work. I remember Crystal Ludwig used to sing between her shoulder blades. So she sang like that. La, 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 ba, 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 la. Why not just sing between your shoulder blades all the time? She did. Had a 60-year career. Absolutely solid as a rock. She sang mezzo and soprano music. And made a fabulous career. And that is a very, very reliable way to sing. But on the other hand, Gili, Beniamino Gili and Lauri Volpi did something similar, except they didn't stop. They did a slide all the way back and down the spine. So now that's an action that's in motion. Here we have a motion action because it doesn't stop anywhere. You just keep absolutely sliding down like you're on a water slide at the park, except it's going that way. Your spine becomes the slide. So I go, ah, 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 ah. What do you think of that one? They both made fantastic careers. Well, I could go on and on and on. Birgit Nilsson, who had the biggest voice in the world, right? She had a way of dropping straight down and contacting the perineum, which she learned how to do through yoga. And before that, she had all kinds of trouble because it was a massive voice, and her voice was just out of control. And then she all of a sudden got control. And the way she got control was making an action that was straight down, take the breath and go, and put it all the way down in the middle of the crotch. The reaction to that will be that it goes straight up right here. So it's do you see any action or reaction? You see my diaphragm jump immediately. So any of these actions, and they seem endless, but there's so many. I guess there's as many as there are singers, you know. Richard Tucker was very clear. He said, breathe behind you. And then he said, stop it right here. Somebody go, la, la. Where's the action in my body? There's one that is, some people think it's the best one of all. But there are a couple of best ones. One is smelling the flower. If I go, la, la, not much action down there that I can see or feel. So what I do is I hold the concept of smelling the flower, and it goes like that. And I maintain that until I can find its opposite and equal reaction. Ah, 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 ah. See? And I should confess that I not only got these all from great singers, I tried them all out myself. One time or another, I used every one of them. Leonard Warren used the pre-sneeze, which was bigger than smelling the flower. Oh, 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 like that. La, much more reaction. La, see? But you can smell the flower also and go, la, 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 la. What do you think of that? What do you think of all of these? Interesting, aren't they? And they all work. Remember that. I was either given, lent, borrowed, or stole these concepts from great singers. Some of the great singers with great voices basically were yellers and screamers. Some of them were pinched, and they did not sound good. Caruso says in his book about page 3 or something, he says, never sing into the nasal cavity. He said, never. That means you never sing nasally. I remember in Franco Corelli's master class, somebody got up and was singing like that. And then Corelli just about had a heart attack and threw a fit up there. He said, you cannot sing through your nose. Are you crazy? The Italians hate the nose. They hate it. And he went on and on and on. And the kid was standing there like, well, you know, it's the teacher's fault. They told him to do it, and he did it pretty well. But if I sing up here, I can sing, but the sound, for some reason, it blends in with the orchestra and doesn't really project. Everybody thinks because it's narrow, it'll cut through the orchestra, but it really doesn't. See, not much reaction down here either. So you don't want ever to sing in the false mask which is this one. Hung. Don't sing there. Ah, it's nasal. The other one, which is hung. Ah, 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 ah. What's happening down there? Now comes probably one of the hardest ones of all, because you don't feel very much, and you don't always see very much either. So, well, I've got a big pot belly, so it's easy to see on me, and I'm not really embarrassed about it. I'm proud of it. It took a lot of food to make that thing. All right. Anyway, one is the Crescendo de Crescendo, as it was done by the old singers who learned with old singers. Like I studied with Olga Reese, 65 years ago. She studied with Alma Foston in St. Petersburg, Lamperti's superstar student who made the biggest career in Eastern Europe at the time. She was a prima donna of the St. Petersburg Opera House. And my old teacher was that was Lamperti. That was Lamperti's superstar in the East, and then Marcella Sembrich, who opened the Metropolitan Opera, first performance ever, soprano, was the other superstar from out of the Lamperti studio. He had a lot of singers that sang, but those two took off because their voices were so phenomenal, right? But anyway, if I do this one now, you have to watch what's happening. I'm going to start with a falsetto, and first of all, it's ooh. Now I'm going to try to make that falsetto as small, the smallest sound I can make. Now I'm going to go. Maybe after a little bit higher. The reason this was hard is because it's very hard to identify down here. I'm sitting in this chair, and what I mainly feel is my lower back is doing this. Well, I can identify that, I can sing with that. But the amount that I apply, the amount of energy I apply from back there, is variable, and it's very hard to find exactly the same amount you get if you do a real crescendo de crescendo. La messa di voce, in Italian it's called traditionally. And if I start with my smallest sound, I go. The idea is to start teeny weeny, crescendo, and then decrescendo back to teeny weeny. What do I feel down here? Very little. Yeah, I need a whole. I know I should plaster myself all over with some kind of sensors, because I would love to know where that one's being supported. The only support that I could use that resembled that was to squeeze my back deliberately and make that my technique. I mean, I can sing it, but it depends on the kind of music. It's very hard to sing very light, very subtle music when you're squeezing your accordion back there, you know. So if I do this one, now do you remember, for probably the first 200 years of great classical singing training, that was the #1 vocalist, and everybody did that one until they mastered it, and then they could sing anything. So many of the other vocalists are training the voice and brain to work together to make music, especially a lot of coloratura stuff. But this was the main vocalist that everyone learned in order to become a singer. So you go, very, very subtle, and seems to include the entire body, which is maybe why people like it so much, if they figure out how to do it. So you practice all of these and always try to identify your reactions. Or you can make an action, right, and try to identify its reaction. If I go, Allah, I'm making the action down here. See? I mean, I can go breath of fire. See, that's the action was made here, and this one's the reaction. Got it? All right, that's enough of that for today. You get the idea. There aren't many more that have been used by great singers. One was the famous Martellati technique. Maybe I'll do that one again. But Giovanni Martinelli used to go. So no Staccato in that one. He said, "Yeah, but I was hired here to replace Caruso, and nobody could replace Caruso. So I decided I would just go for the big sound and let them say, I had a big voice, they let me sing all the dramatic roles, and it worked for him. He sang 33 years at the Metropolitan Opera. He was 77 when I met him, and I was 21, and he was still singing at the Metropolitan Opera. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.